The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. Amanda Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, I say only a half-hearted Excelsior today.
And I offer a half-hearted Excelsior to you, my friend.
Because when we discuss these issues of the new Defenders, I have a feeling we're going to be breezing through them.
Yeah, which is funny. Today we're going to try, listeners, to go through issues 148, 149, and 150. Now,
and 150 is a double-sized issue.
Exactly. It's a double size. So it should be difficult to go through all those in our regular time. But.
Yeah, but there's something about them.
Yeah, there's something about them.
They're just kind of... Well, all right, well, let's just jump in. New Defenders 148. Written by Peter B. Gillis, with art by the returning Sal Buscema, and unfortunately inks from Art Nichols, and which isn't to say that Art Nichols is a bad inker. It's just that there's something a bit stiff and lifeless about about the art in comparison to what has come before.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see Buscema back on the book. You know, he's always been my favorite Defenders artist, my favorite comic artist. But yeah, while Nichols is certainly a capable inker, I agree with you. It makes Buscema's character seem very stilted here.
Yeah. It's this issue is called The Kickshaw's Consignment, and Brian, I feel like I mostly just want to sum this issue up and then discuss it rather than break it down the way we normally do.
I think that's fair. Before you sum it up, we should say that this is obviously a fill-in issue. If you listen to last week's episode, we ended on the cliffhanger of Seraph showing back up and telling the Defenders that she knew Cloud's real identity and that she was taking Cloud with her. None of that is mentioned this issue.
No, yeah, none of that. This is definitely a fill-in issue. And yeah. So on the upside of it, folks. All right, let's just go through. So, in this issue, we have the Groucho Marx character called Rufus Hackstabber, who's a cab driver in San Francisco, driving the son of Satan, Damon Hellstrom, and his wife, Patsy Walker Hellstrom, the Hellcat, to meet up with some guy, a wealthy guy who's looking for an item. Very Maltese Falcon. This item is supposedly a supernatural, a statue or figure that has the supernatural capacity to essentially reinstate previous supernatural things that have been destroyed in the world. I'm surprised this thing hasn't been brought back, Brian.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it now. We'd have to flip to it. It's like the
Lesser Gray God.
The Lesser Gray God. There you go. So the statue of the Lesser Gray God. And so, for instance, Damon Hellstrom says that it could reinstate his dark soul. which is no longer in him. So let's just sort of explain that's what it is. Right. So the story basically is two people with interest in the supernatural, occultists, are both vying for this thing. The old man thinks that the old woman, I'm not even going through to get their names, has acquired it. And there's some back and forth. It's very much in that noir Humphrey Bogart kind of thing where the question is who has it. She thinks he has it. He thinks she has it. And he has hired the Hellstroms to come in as occult investigators and try to locate it. We have some ridiculous, I mean, again, that's it. I hate this Rufus Hackstabber character, the Groucho Marx, character. I hate the dialogue. It makes me cringe. How do you feel about it, Brian?
Okay, here, let's unpack this. I distinctly remember reading this at age 16 and being pissed off and moving on to probably Micronauts or Moon Knight. Or
were you pissed off at the waste of the presence of the Hellstroms?
Yeah, longtime listeners to the show know that Damon Hellstrom, the son of Satan, is one of my favorite Defenders. And okay, I dug the new Defenders. I liked what was happening, but it was great to see Damon and Patsy back for an issue, and they do nothing. They're talking heads.
Right. They literally do nothing.
Yeah, and then keep in mind it's 1985 when this came out. So I guess I was 17 when I was reading it. 1985. I don't know who the fuck Groucho Marx is. I mean, I know he's somebody that like my grandparents and my parents appreciate, but I'm into George Carlin and Eddie Murphy was very big at the time. Right, I don't know Groucho Marx from Adam. Yeah. So I remember not enjoying it as a teenager, and I got to tell you, rereading it as a 51-year-old, I did not enjoy it the second time around. This is a big swing and a big miss.
Yeah, it's a very frustrating. I will say that I was happy to see the way that the Hellstroms are presented here, because presumably this is going to be what we see in the new Hellstrom TV series on Hulu,
right?
Which I hope is good. Anyway, so Beast and Gargoyle have been brought in by Mr. Van Vliet, who is the occultist who's hired them to try to find the lesser gray god. Then a police detective bursts in, and then the moment after that, Brian, the moment that I appreciate less than having Rufus Hackstabber in this issue is the return of two characters we couldn't say enough bad things about the last time they appeared in the Defenders.
That's pages. Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Typhoon and Cutlass. You'll remember them, the horribly cheesy private detectives. I literally was reading this morning while Dungeon Master was getting ready for school, and I groaned out loud when they made their return appearance. When we originally talked about them in a previous episode, I think we both commented, well, it's a good thing we never saw them again in the Marvel Universe. But we were wrong. I guess we blocked this from our
minds. We were wrong. Not only do we see them again, but we see them with Rufus Hackstabber in the same issue.
Yeah.
There's some tennis with a hand grenade. There's a bunch of there's just a lot of talking where they're trying to figure out who has the lesser gray god and who hired whom and why Cutlass and Typhoon are there, why the detective is there, why the Defenders are there, why the Hellstroms are there.
Why the hell is anybody
there? And there's some picking of locks, and there's a locked room murder mystery where Van Vliet is killed. They chase the guys who killed Van Vliet. Folks, if you're getting the idea that we found this issue less than entertaining, you are correct.
That's right. That's right.
Basically, they get to the old woman's house. Her name is Minerva something, and and basically they figure out that the they find the lesser gray god in her possession, but what they realize is that it is not Hellstrom, although he no longer has his dark soul. Its vibrations are strange. Typhoon shoots it while it's in his hands to show that it's hollow. It's not the real deal, and we discover that this whole thing has been in a very Maltese Falcon-esque way. And if you haven't seen the movie, go see it. What's wrong with you ignorant savages? So basically, they were fighting over nothing, essentially.
Right.
Nobody has it, except at the end, after the Minerva's minions are defeated. And forgive me, Brian, I'm just wrapping it up here. We find that actually the lesser gray god has been there all along. It is the hood ornament on the taxi of Rufus Hackstabber.
Right.
Which none of the characters ever realize.
Right.
And that's the end of that issue.
That's the end of that issue. Enough said.
That may be the fastest we've ever gone through an issue of the Defenders.
I mean, I think about this. Okay, it was the 80s. It was the mid-80s.
Yep.
Carl Potts edited this. Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief. So one of them greenlit this pitch, supposedly. I mean, this would be like in 2019 if you and I pitched a comic book with, an Andrew Dice Clay character driving the cab. How many millennial and Generation Z comic book readers would even know who Andrew Dice Clay was?
Right.
Let alone one of his characters. It so much wasted potential here for the Hellstroms. So many pop culture references that I didn't get then, and I still don't get now. I mean, now I know who Rufus Hackstabber is, of course, as an adult, but it's still not a touchstone for me. Just, the less said, the better. Let's move on to issue 149.
Which is certainly a better issue. Still not up to par.
Right. I have to wonder at this point. They're approaching a milestone issue 150. Was there something in the water? Did the creative team suspect that they might be getting canceled? Often that would happen during a milestone issue, issue 75 or issue 100 or issue 150, because it feels very rushed. But it also feels my suspicion is that at this point that Gillis may have known that the writing was on the wall, that the numbers were low. But it's weird to me because this was especially during this era. Like now, as soon as the numbers drop below a certain level, they cancel the title and probably relaunch it again. Right.
But this was an era in which when the numbers were low, it would be, let's bring in Spider-Man and the Avengers and have some big crossover to try to, guest appearances to try to goose the sales. And in here, as we'll see in a moment, issue 150 is perhaps the least accessible issue since the Tunnel World saga.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Jesus, I thought, now that you say it, I think I'd rather go back and reread Tunnel World than this.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know. But yeah, we open with, where we left 2 issues ago with Seraph and the new Defenders in Doctor Strange's house. Remember, Doctor Strange is not there. And, she's repeating to them that she has the secret of Cloud's identity and that she wants to take Cloud with her. And Cloud tells the Defenders, yes, I want to go with Seraph, but I would also like you to come with me.
Right. I want to interrupt you for 1 second and say, I did appreciate the fact that on that first page, in the left-hand column, where we see the faces and names of all of the characters, the Defenders, Candy Southern is listed and pictured as a member of the team.
Yes, that's a very cool touch.
Yeah, so there you go. It's sort of like the episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where Tara dies, and that's the only episode where Amber Benson is in the opening credits. Not that they kill Candy here, but It's the same idea, I think.
Right.
Go ahead.
We should also mention, if you're reading this at home or if you're listening via YouTube, the inking is a mess here.
Yes.
It changes from panel to panel.
Literally panel to panel.
Art Nichols is listed as the inker over Don Perlin's pencils, but then there's a little caption box on the bottom of page 1 that also credits Del Barris for his inking assistance. And it shows that there were 2 separate inkers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a panel on page 2 of Beast. I think it's terrific.
And
nice
then right below it is probably the worst depiction of Valkyrie we've ever seen.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, it's definitely weird, but
she looks like King Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
I also think it's interesting because Andromeda steps right into being a defender. Not only does she step right into it, she commits the defenders to going with Cloud. And then they just accept her right off the bat, which is, it's just not, it's done in a very haphazard kind of fashion.
It is.
Then we get her sort of origin, and her origin is basically that she was a commander in the armed forces of Atlantis, and she was extraordinary, but she was denied a lot of advancement because she was a woman. And she had heard so much about the defenders, because Namor was a defender, that she decided that she would leave Atlantis and try her hand at superheroing with the defenders to gain, so that she wouldn't. The defenders were equal opportunity, where the Atlantean military was not. Right.
I apologize for all the background noise, Chris. As you may have guessed, Mary San Giovanni's now awake. That's why there's chaos here in the background.
It's alive. It wants tea. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
That was the highlight of this episode. Are you kidding? Anyway, so there's that. Anyway, they basically welcome Andromeda to the new Defenders.
Right.
And we cut to the next day, where Hank and Vera are having breakfast together, or brunch
and
together.
You know what's been missing from this show since we got the new Defenders? You and we'd always point out, how Doctor Strange was being a dick, or how Namor was being a dick. We haven't had that for a while.
And
Hank
McCoy is being such a dick in this scene.
Yeah, I mean, he's having lunch with Vera, his on-again, off-again, long-suffering girlfriend. And he gets, you think he's about to propose to her. He has the little jewelry box, and he says, there's something that I've been wanting to saving for you for a while. And he takes her hand. He says, this is important. And she opens the ring box, and it's a genuine Beast signal watch. It has a special subetheric signaling device. Just press the stem when you're lonely, and I'll hear it with my Beast hearing. He doesn't have Beast hearing.
Right, exactly. Not only does he not have Beast hearing, but he lives in fucking New Mexico, and she lives in New York. Even if he had Daredevil level hearing, he would not be able to hear it in New Mexico.
No, and then he zips off. He leaves her with this stupid fucking watch that you get out of a box of cereal, and bounds away, happy-go-lucky Beast. And she immediately presses it, which it's heartbreaking.
Right, she immediately tests the thing to see if he'll come back.
Yeah,
and he doesn't, and she's left in tears.
Yeah, it's what a douche.
And the crazy thing is, this is so out of character.
It is. It is.
His treatment of Vera has been out of character previously in this series, but this, as someone who has been reading this character since the 1970s, it's just, anyway. But yes, he is being such an asshole.
I agree. We then cut to the jet, Angel's private jet. Angel's still wearing his blind man sunglasses, and they're the whole team's on board, and then suddenly Cloud has some kind of attack, and they split into both their male presenting and female presenting identities at the same time, and then they split into an actual Cloud on board the plane, complete with lightning, which lightning inside a plane is never a good idea, and as you can imagine, the plane begins to crash.
Yeah, Beast gets zapped, and Blind Angel has to take the stick and attempt to right the plane with the help of the others, but Angel, being the other pilot on board, although unsighted, is able to get it under control long enough for Beast to recover and get back to the stick.
Right.
The controls of the plane. Now, listen, before we get on to this next section, I just want to I just want to ask a question, Brian.
Okay.
So we are about, folks, in the rest of this issue and in the next issue, we are about to get a very unnecessarily complex exploration of what Cloud is, how they became what they are, etc., etc. And it dovetails in the end, the resolution of the whole story dovetails with a bunch of things, including Angel's blindness.
Right.
And I'm really curious whether Peter Gillis planned that or was winging it, getting to the explanation. Like if it was one of those things, 'cause I know I've done it. I'm sure you've done it too. You're moving along, you're writing these things, and you're not sure how they all fit. And then one day you're like out for a walk or in the shower, and you go, "I know how I can make this all come together." So I'm curious about that, but that's got nothing to do with the next 3 pages.
No.
I'm curious. Give us your take on these next 3 pages, Brian.
Okay, well, you'll remember in last week's episode we had that strange interlude with the cloaked figure, the fur cloaked figure who scared the wolf pack away from him in Siberia. He's now crossing the icy shore near the Bering Straits, and wrapped in his cloak of fear. The Soviets who are there will not face him. None will dare. Basically, this guy is spreading fear around him, like this invisible wave.
They won't even look at him because they feel terror in his presence.
Yeah. He comes up to this Soviet base, and he goes into this sealed, locked case for some kind of map. And the map, the captions tell us, inform him where the dragon spore came from. The guards, terrified of him as they are, they're more terrified of their Soviet leaders should this map be stolen. So they finally pull their weapons, they fire on him. The bullets seemingly have no effect, and we then learn that his identity, he's called the Interloper, and he goes wherever he must, and nothing will stop him.
Right.
And the
bullets
map
don't stop him.
Right. The map, we get a glimpse at it. He is going to New Mexico.
So we cut away to the hospital in West Virginia, where a girl named Carol Faber supposedly is being held. Now, Carol Faber is the identity that we thought Seraph was telling Cloud that they were Carol Faber.
Can I just say, as somebody who has been in a hospital in West Virginia on more than one occasion, Carol Faber is fucked.
Okay. Anyway, so the defenders all go in, and Cloud is afraid to go in. Cloud throws themselves into Bobby's arms and says, "Take me away from here, Bobby. I can't go in. I'll stay a girl all the time if you want. Just take me away, please. Which broke my heart.
Right.
And Bobby says, Cloud, you have to do it. You have to know, otherwise you'll live with that door for the rest of your life. The door that they won't enter.
Right.
So Cloud goes in, and from this point forward, it's confusing to me how we talk about Cloud, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Can I summarize
Please
the next
do.
2 pages?
Please
Okay,
do.
you'll remember a couple episodes ago, we had that Cloud flashback origin, where we thought Cloud was the small child in the back of the car, watching as this meteorite or this comet struck the car. We now find out, in reality, Cloud was in fact the meteorite or the comet. It was Cloud descending from the sky, descending from the atmosphere, striking the car.
In the next issue, we'll find out what Cloud is.
Right. In that car were 2 children, Carol, the female, and her brother. I don't know if they named the brother or not.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever get his name.
Yeah, so that explains.
So Cloud has been manifesting alternately as the brother or the sister,
right,
depending on the moment.
Right.
We get a little bit more of that flashback. We get an explanation of how that happened. But we also know that Cloud was doing this as a reaction to some kind of massive danger, but Cloud cannot remember what that danger was.
Right.
And Seraph says, we must go back into the heart of your pain and beyond to discover what the nature of that was.
Right. So the Defenders, the entire team, goes deep into the mountains of West Virginia to the crash site. And, they're walking Cloud around, trying to jog Cloud's memory. And, Cloud seems to have some kind of seizure. And Bobby mistakenly thinks that Seraph has somehow harmed Cloud, and attacks Seraph. And then, Valkyrie stops him and, says, well, I'm a Valkyrie. I know when somebody's dead. Cloud's not dead. And, I don't know. Then there's some weirdness, and Gargoyle picks Cloud up.
Gargoyle takes Cloud up higher away from this site, and suddenly Cloud remembers what the danger was. The mist of Cloud envelops the Defenders, and they vanish. And that's the end of the issue.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to 150, I did enjoy looking at the checklist, Brian, of comics available at this time.
Oh, hang on. Let me flip to that page.
It's the inside back cover, and one of the things I noticed was how many miniseries they were doing at the time. And I sort of
Swashbucklers, Alien Legion, Dreadstar.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and miniseries too. I'm talking about, Long Shot, Vision and the Scarlet Witch.
Yep.
Rawhide Kid. Let's see here. Solomon Kane, Balder the Brave, Nightcrawler, Eternals. These are all miniseries.
Yep.
Secret Wars 2, like all of this stuff. And those miniseries a lot of them were landmark things. Like, that we still remember that Long Shot series, the Vision and the Scarlet Witch series, Eternals. These are Secret Wars, obviously, are things that have had some enduring thing. And then under Epic Comics, Moonshadow, which we discussed with J.M. DeMatteis when he was on with us.
Yep.
The One, which is that's the Rick Veitch thing, I think, right?
Yep. And the color reprints of ElfQuest.
Yeah, there you go.
One day I would love, and we won't do it on this show because there's no way to tie it in, but I would love to talk about ElfQuest. Did you ever read that?
I tried. I was not a fan.
I discovered it in its original black and white magazine format. And I was far too young to be reading it. My mother got me an issue, and because she knew I like comic books, and it was the issue with the elf orgy. And I was maybe,
Well,
which
now I
Marvel,
want to read it.
yeah, Marvel cut all of the adult stuff out when they reprinted these and colorized them. But yeah, I would love to go back and reread the entire ElfQuest series in its original black and white format. I wonder if it still holds up, because it was amazing stuff when I was a kid. It was one of those, okay, I am not old enough to be reading this, but my parents haven't figured it out, so
Well,
I'm
those are the best, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I just think about all the movies and things. Like, God bless HBO, because, the things I saw at a tender age that I probably shouldn't have seen.
But you know what's unfortunate about this checklist? We also have Secret Wars 2. Inarguably, I still say Marvel's lowest point, at least for the Bronze Age.
Okay. Well, I think we should cover that on the show.
Well, we're going to next week, because Defenders, the final issue of the Defenders,
ties into Secret Wars 2. I know. All right. Well, Defenders 150. I wish that I could say, it being this anniversary issue, 150 issues. And by the way, congratulations, my friend. We've made it through 150 issues.
We have
Defenders on this show. I wish that I could say that it lives up to the history of this book. The one big benefit I will say about it, and it's not terrible by any stretch.
It's rushed.
It's
rushed,
and it's flat. There's a lot of what I say. There's a lot of dithering.
Yes.
So the one thing I will say is the inks are by Alan Kupperberg and Randy Emberlin over Don Perlin, and the inks on this are much better than the Art Nichols inks. So at least we've got that. The art is superior in this issue.
Absolutely. And we open with some a gorgeous splash page in space, quoting Percy Shelley, and then a double splash page of the Avengers. Now, just a few moments ago on the show, they disappeared. The Defenders. A few moments ago, they disappeared. Now they reappear, floating in the cold void of space.
Right. All right. Now, look, Brian, I'm just going to sum up a bunch of shit.
Go right ahead.
All right. So basically,
you keep summarizing until we get to the Overmind, and then I want to rant.
Yeah. Oh yes. I was going to, but it would be much more entertaining when you do it.
Okay.
So basically, here's the gist, folks. Cloud turns out to have been a nebula cloud, who will hundreds of millions of years from now solidify into a star, the way that coal eventually becomes a diamond. And somehow there is a massive growth floating in space that was once the cosmic cube. Now follow me here.
For those listeners who listen to the show every week but perhaps don't read along, the cosmic cube in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is what's called the Tesseract.
There you go.
Yeah.
The Tesseract.
So yeah, this was once the Tesseract.
But now it looks like a giant spore floating in space, having no relation to the interloper's reference to dragon spore in the last issue, but it just looks like a giant whatever floating in space. In any case, the cube sensed the extermination, the disappearance of hundreds, thousands of stars in the distant space that are they're just winking out, and this darkness is spreading in space. Somehow, the cube gave the nebula consciousness as Cloud, and helped Cloud, that nebula, get to Earth, because the cosmic cube knows that Earth is filled with heroes who will stop at nothing to save everything. because
That's
the
right.
Cosmic Cube knows the Avengers well, particularly Captain America.
That's right. In fact, the last time we saw the Cosmic Cube was in Captain America Annual #7, when it did, in fact, hatch and leave the planet.
Right. Now, if you think this sounds crazy, you're right, but Gillis does a commendable job of communicating all this information. It's just a lot of floating around and exposition. So
Right.
that's why I'm trying to sum it up in that way. Cloud is still in the story, but now appearing initially as like an astral projection of a floating head or two floating heads, and then later as like just sort of this shining silhouette.
Sort of like the Star Child from 2001.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also the cube manifests itself as Captain America.
That's right. So we get that crossover that you mentioned, Chris. You know, when
Cap is
Sales
not on the
Flash...
cover, Brian, and that is the problem. Had Cap been on the cover and it turned out to be the Cosmic Cube, that probably would have sold a few more copies. But we also have this alien race that's fleeing the destruction of their universe, of their solar system, because their star system, their star has winked out, and these handful of people have escaped. We learn a little bit more about what's been happening to these various stars, but not much. So this issue is just page after page after page after page, literally, of talking.
Right. And then the big bad is revealed, and we get more talking.
Yes. The big bad is revealed. Explain the big bad, Brian.
The big bad is space cancer. It's called the Star Thief. And it's basically space cancer. But it has a face like Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls.
I am Mojo Jojo.
Mary Sangiovanni is having fits right now. She's with muffled laughter. I'm going to hold up. Look, it's Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls. She's nodding her head in vigorous agreement. And it talks like Mojo Jojo. This is something supposedly as powerful as Galactus, okay? And what does it tell the Defenders? Yeah, it tells the Defenders, you're stupid. It won't make me happy if you try to stop me. This is the dialogue. This Lovecraftian entity has been imbued with.
Well, but we do get an explanation for why the dialogue is like that.
Do we?
Yes.
I skipped that. Please enlighten me.
It's the ending.
I got to be honest with you. I started speed reading after I made that. Hopefully.
All right. Mention the Overmind.
Yes, the Overmind. So yeah, this thing. What was it? Cloud reached out to the Overmind for help, and the Overmind, the
Cosmic Cube, I think, did.
Yeah. Okay. The Cosmic Cube reaches out to, when it gets to Earth, it reaches out to the Overmind for help. And the Overmind supposedly went off to confront the Star Thief and then disappeared. Nobody's heard from the Overmind since. This is what pisses me off, okay? Because J.M. DeMatteis, he introduces the Overmind as a villain. The Overmind ends up joining the Defenders, becomes one of the most intriguing Defenders characters ever. We get that wonderful spotlight issue, where we examine several of the different personalities that make up the Overmind's body. And then we never see the character again in the book. And we all wonder why. Well, now we find out why. It's because Overmind fucked off to go mess with the Star Thief.
Well, no, that's not really why. Gillis decided not to use the Overmind, and probably people wrote in and said, what happened to the Overmind?
Yeah. In fact, I think I might have been one of them.
And so now we have basically two lines that explain why the Overmind. Also, isn't there something in here about the Overmind being erased from their minds?
Yeah.
So they didn't wonder where he'd gone?
Yeah. There's something about the Overmind itself telepathically erased their memory of it.
Yeah.
So that they wouldn't worry about it. I don't know.
Yeah. So there you go. And again, yes, there's some fighting, but it all leads to nothing. They all get universal translators from the Cosmic Cube, which seems to me that it's the Cosmic Cube. It could just go, hey, you can all understand each other from now on.
Yeah, I mean, the Cosmic Cube gives, as you've seen, even again, if you don't read the comics, if you've just watched the movies, it gives you the power of God.
Right.
You
Now,
can rewrite
I will say
reality.
that what is established here is that the cube has been significantly depowered, but doesn't know why.
Right.
So we go to this warlike planet. They're attacked. Their ship is blown up. They barely make it to the planet, and the Star Thief appears. The face of Mojo Jojo appears in the sky. It says they dare to come here, but it doesn't seem as powerful, and they realize that that's because it doesn't want to destroy its own home. They've come to this planet because this is where the power of the Star Thief is originating. We cut to the chase, Brian. The Star Thief is a manifestation of the consciousness of a comatose alien girl, an alien princess. It reminds me very much of, and now I'm going way back to the nerdiness of my youth. It reminds me very much of an episode of the original Star Trek series. I can't remember the name of the character, but it's, basically the idea is that, this is the unconscious mind of a princess who's never been told no by anybody. She was blinded and made unconscious or made comatose by exposure to a laser, meaning light. And so now she's basically putting out all the lights, meaning all the stars. And it... So Warren Worthington III, who is blind now, understands what it's like to live in the darkness. And somehow Warren and then the other defenders, they surround this girl and they join their consciousnesses and show her that it's okay.
And Beast sums everything up by saying, I don't understand, but okay, I'll just go along.
Right. And then there's when she's back to normal, when she's coming around, suddenly in her hand is a small pouch, and inside the pouch itself is a pocket dimension filled with all the stars that she'd stolen. And the Cosmic Cube / Captain America picks up the pouch and says, well, I'm now fully powered, because we found out the princess also had drained. That's how the princess got the power to do all of this. Somehow her consciousness tapped into the Cosmic Cube and drained its power to use for herself.
Right.
And now the Cosmic Cube is going to go out as Captain America with Cloud and replace all of the stars. No mention is made of the billions of lives that were lost when those stars were removed, but those are going to be replaced.
Right.
You want to talk about the Cloud and Bobby at the end?
Yeah, I mean, for 25 issues, we've had this love story, this unrequited love story between Cloud and Bobby. It gets 5 panels here to sum it up. Cloud tells Bobby, I know you cared for me, Bobby, and it hurt you because of what I thought I was. I couldn't care enough for you back. Now I know differently. You asked me once when I said that being male or female was like looking through different sunglasses. Who was behind those glasses? Now I can tell you it is someone who loves you best of all. I'll keep you in my heart, Bobby, and in a few million years, you'll shine through the heavens as I give back to the universe the light you've given me.
Which was actually kind of sweet.
Yeah, no, that's some great writing there on Gillis's part. And then, Captain Cube sends the defenders home.
But that's not keep on fighting, defenders. You're the best. And please remember to tell Captain America I said hi, will you?
Yeah. But that's not the end. Because there's one member of the team we've forgotten about and we haven't seen in these 3 issues. And that is, of course, the Beast's dog, Sassafras.
This was delightful.
This is the best part of these 3 issues.
It is basically, it is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of Sassafras accidentally triggering a Hollow System game called When Titans Clash. And Sassafras is not aware that she's playing this game, but in fact, she's up against the Hollow System and scoring points by eluding Nick Fury, Doctor Strange, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Ghost Rider, and Werewolf by Night.
Yep.
And that's the whole story. Basically, is Sassafras is racking up points, which I love. That she's doing better at this game than most of them probably would.
But then it takes a dark turn because we see a gloved hand turn off the game, and then that gloved hand reaches down and grabs the dog, picks Sassafras up, and we see Manslaughter. You know, the foe who almost killed the New Defenders has returned, and Manslaughter says, "Now we'll just sit back and wait, little buddy, for your friends, the Defenders, to return, shall we?"
There you go.
Dun,
now,
dun, dun.
I think you're right, because the Secret Wars 2 had been going on for quite a while at this point. Remember, it was a 12-issue series.
Yep, and we're up to, when this issue is published, we're up to issue 6 of Secret Wars 2.
Right, which tells me that Gillis had to know that the New Defenders would be ending as part of the plot of Secret Wars 2, that this book was going to be coming to an end. Now, one last thing, Brian, before we move on, because we've accomplished the equivalent of 4 issues in 45 minutes. I have never read there's an ad for 2 Marvel graphic novels at the back of this.
Absolutely.
One is Revenge of the Living Monolith, which stars Spider-Man, the FF, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. The other is called The Aladdin Effect. And it stars some of my favorite characters. Storm, the She-Hulk, Tigra, and the Wasp. I've never read either of these.
I read them both back in the day in their original form. Revenge of the Living Monolith is unfortunately iconic for the cover, which, the Marvel character, the Living Monolith, he grows to supersize and basically becomes a bad guy. And that iconic cover shows him smashing the World Trade Centers in Manhattan, decades before 9/11.
Right.
The Aladdin Effect is notable. These days in comics, people complain, like when they had A-Force, the all-female Avengers, or in Avengers Endgame, when you get that shot of Captain Marvel and all the...
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. One of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah. The Aladdin Effect, this was 1985, folks, and it was an all-female Marvel graphic novel. It was Storm, She-Hulk, Tigra, and the Wasp. It was great. It's a great story. I don't remember much about it other than I really enjoyed it at the time.
I'm gonna have to track it down now, because I've never read it, and I want to check it out. Also, I should say, as a big fan of Tigra, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'm so excited that Marvel is doing a book that I've been waiting for a long time. Even though I have all of the issues, they're doing a big collection of all the classic Tigra stories from this era.
Really?
Yeah, starting with the Claws of the Cat, which is the 4 issues where Greer Nelson is wearing the original cat costume, which later Patsy Walker takes on as Hellcat.
Right.
But is not Tigra yet. It starts with that, 4 issues. And then it collects all of those Marvel Chiller issues with Tigra, the Werewoman, and various team-ups and 2-in-1s and issues of the Avengers and other stuff. All of that stuff from this era in one collection. So I'm excited for that.
That's good stuff. If I hadn't stopped buying collected editions and started buying the floppies again, I would buy that.
Well, you may need to anyway, because we may do that on this show.
Keep in mind, this time last year, I'm 2 weeks away from the anniversary of my accident. So this time last year, I had one floppy, and that was Scott Edelman had given me a copy of his Dead of Night first appearance of Scarecrow, and he'd signed it for me. Now I have 4 long white boxes of floppies. I am back into it heavy, Chris.
Wow, you are really on a well. You have some time to start gathering up these issues for Tigra.
I do. All right, folks. Well, if you enjoyed this show, I got to tell you, we reach the end of an era next week. We will reach the end of the Defenders' initial run. How do you feel about that, Chris?
I'm excited. I've enjoyed. We'll talk more about it next, but I have really enjoyed even the issues like this episode that I was not in love with. It's been such a pleasure to go back and find not only the stories that really excited me then, but also these things that are seeds. Like even in this issue, the character of the interloper reminds me. It's very Odin-like.
Yes,
I'm a big fan of Odin from Norse mythology, not necessarily from the comics. And it's very Odin-like, and I did a trilogy of novels called the Veil Trilogy. The Myth Hunters is the first one, and there's a character in there called Wayland Smith, who's based on legends of a character called Wayland Smith. But my presentation of Wayland Smith has to be influenced by Odin and by the interloper, and it's really weird because I had no recollection that the interloper ever existed in my consciousness.
You know what? No bullshit. I have a sticky note next to my laptop. Next week, when the interloper begins to factor heavily into the story, I wanted to ask you if you thought maybe that was a subconscious influence. You know, we've talked about how Null the Living Darkness in this comic obviously influenced me as far as Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yep.
But yeah, I wondered that in rereading these. I'm like, I wonder if Chris picked up on that.
Yeah, but it's funny, but I literally had no memory that this character even existed until we ran across him again.
Yeah.
And as soon as I turned the page and I saw him, I was like, wow, okay. I wonder if this is part of the influence of at least the way I present that character.
Right.
So yeah, it's been really interesting. It's been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to covering the last couple of issues. I'm looking forward to checking out the Gargoyle miniseries again freshly. And I have to say though, I am now really looking forward to getting into the Champions.
I am too.
Because weirdly, I feel like the Champions tonally is much more faithful to the original intent of the Defenders.
I agree.
Than what the series becomes at the end here.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Because the Champion, the whole point is it's a bunch of characters who don't belong together, who make themselves into a team by choice or by accident, and the Champions is that.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
And you know what else is good, man? I like that for 150 issues, I've gotten a chance to talk to one of my best friends every week. So
it's been a pleasure to hear your Patsy Walker imitation.
Thank you, Chris.
It's been yes, it has been a great pleasure.
It's been my pleasure too. Okay.
to spend that time thinking about nothing but comics from our youth. In this world, in our daily nonsense, whether it be work pressure or like outside pressure in the world, and I hope that we bring a little bit of that diversion to the 3 people who listen to this show.
No, we're up to 6 now.
6? Wow.
Yeah, we have 6
Whew.
listeners.
6
speaking of which, folks, if you enjoy this show, if you're one of the 6 people who enjoy this show, there's a couple other things you might enjoy. 3 Guys with Beards. That's Chris's other podcast that he does every week with James Moore, Jonathan Mayberry, and a rotating host of guests. And you might also enjoy the Horror Show with Brian Keene. That's a show that, as you may have guessed from the title, I do every week with Mary Sangiovanni, Dave Thomas, Matt Wilderson, and another rotating cast of guests. Both of them are available wherever you listen to Defenders Dialogue via the Project Entertainment Network. If you'd like to learn about those shows, if you'd like to sponsor Defenders Dialogue, just go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com, click contact, and send an email.
That sounds great, Brian. And
It does.
You know what else sounds great?
When you sign us out every week.
Excelsior, true believers.
We'll see you next week, folks.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
Anything moist. You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd
be going down on myself? Shit.
Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya.
and Junior
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
Check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows. Three guys with beards: Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast, Igborn.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show. Chuck Buda. And Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method. Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans. Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith. John Urban, sick of ink stains.
Biz Ung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.